Alright, so now we're going to show you guys how to do an assembly edit on this project here. Now I've already imported the media here, everything's all ready to go, and like I mentioned, I'm going to go up to this little workspace arrangement and I'm going to go under assembly to start doing my basic assembly edit here. I'm going to make sure I have my scene folder open, so I'm going to double click on my scene folder 1. There's a media that I've imported, so here's my project tab, and here is my bin tab, that bin or folder that's opened up and contains all this media. I'm going to go down to the bottom, make sure that I'm in icon mode, which I am, and I'm going to do list view sort and make sure that my footage on my project is sorted by name. Right now it's name with the arrow up, and therefore now this is reading that list view sort, and we'll order these in order from left to right, left to right, left to right, left to right. All right, so to start this off here, I've got my screenplay open for this short here. The screenplay says a typical bedroom. It is dark with a bit of moonlight shining through the window next to the bed of Bella. Bella is in her pajamas, wrapped up cozily in her blankets. She breathes deeply. She's fast asleep. She tosses a bit. Her loud breathing calms. She turns toward her nightstand slowly, opens her eyes, and glances at the digital clock. The clock reads 12:07. Okay, so this part here, when we shot this, we expanded on this a little bit. She turns toward the clock, and the clock is at 12:06, and she sees it change to 12:07 because something happens at 12:07. There's a little horror short based on 2-sentence stories that you can find online. So I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to find my first shot. The first shot that was shot was a master shot. I'm going to move my mouse over this window and hit the tilde key above the tab key, and it will expand that window into full screen here. So I've got scene 1. I've got 6 takes on scene 1 on this one setup right here. And usually I don't have the script supervisor log sheets for this. Usually an editor will have the script supervisor log sheets to let them know what shots are the best ones. This is a short film, and this is all the footage that I basically have for it. So it's not, so as an editor I can just kind of go through the footage. But I'm going to move over this, the take 6, because I'm assuming this is the best one. I'm going to select it, and by the way, if we're going to use shortcuts here, so if we want to use all shortcuts rather than use a mouse, I can hit arrow down and it will select my first clip. I can arrow over to the right several times, 5 times. I hit on scene 1, take 6. But right now with that was selected, I can hit Shift O. That's the same as just simply double clicking on that file right there. Shift O will open up the file in my source monitor. This is not the program monitor. The program monitor views what is in the timeline. So this opens it up in the source monitor where I can edit it. All right, so now I'm going to play through this. First of all, what you can do is you can grab the playhead and skim through your footage here, because the beginning looks like the art director still, or the set dresser still setting some things up while the camera was rolling there, and then she finally moves out of the way. So what I want to do is I want to start where this dolly starts moving here, and I want that to be the beginning of my shot there, as it starts panning across the room and reveals the person reveals Bella sitting in the bed there. Now let's talk about quickly how to navigate through a clip. So this clip right here is 51 seconds long. It shows the duration right there. As long as you don't have an in or out point on this, this will show the duration of your entire clip right there. And over here, this is an arbitrary time code. This starts at 8 hours, 1 minute, 39 seconds, and 12 frames. It's just an arbitrary time code that the camera starts shooting in, so every shot has its own unique time code. So what I can do here is I can press play by hitting spacebar. Spacebar will play and spacebar will pause. Another way of kind of navigating through this is JKL. One thing I'm going to really highly recommend, and anytime you see a professional working, they're usually using the JKL keys. On my keyboard, I put my index finger on J, my middle finger on K, and my ring finger on L. So I've got my 3 fingers resting on that keyboard right there like that, ready to go. So J is rewind, and if I hit J, watch it that it rewinds, it goes backwards. K is stop, and L is forward. So I hit L for forward, it starts playing the clip at normal speed. If you hit L again, it plays at 150%. Hit L again, 200%. Hit L again, 250%, and so on. It does the same with J. If you hit J, 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 it goes faster and faster till it maxes out. So what I can do is I can just play this through on the fly, and I'm going to try to stop this. Rather than go over and grab my mouse, I'm going to hit L, L, L a few times and start forwarding through this. L, 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 and I'm ready to hit K. K, right there. I saw the camera start moving, and I hit K, and I'm just a little past where I want it to go, so I can just hit J to rewind, K to stop, and then L to go forward and get it right where it starts barely moving right there. That's where I want my shot to begin. I want my camera to already be moving when the shot fades in. So I'm going to hit I for endpoint, and notice the letter I, and that sets an endpoint, marks an endpoint right there at that point. This is the entire duration of my clip right here, unless you're zoomed up on it. You can grab these little dots here and zoom up on it. I like to usually have this zoomed out so I can see the entire shot. I pull this all the way over and zoom my shot all the way out. So now I'm going to decide where I want the shot to stop. So now I can hit either L to go forward, or I'm just going to hit spacebar to play at regular speed because I want to watch the shot. So I press spacebar to go through the speed, to play at normal speed. And I'm going to sit here and wait until I want the shot to stop, where I want it to cut. And right when she starts turning over, I kind of want to cut to that over the shoulder shot. So maybe let's wait till she moves a little bit. Here she starts moving, and she's turned over already. I've gone past the point that I really want to stop, but I'm going to fix this later. So I'm going to hit O for out point, and now that's the portion of the clip that I have selected right there. If you want to change it, it's really easy to change your out point. If you play a little further and say, I want my out point there, you just hit O again, and it resets it to that point. And same as the endpoint. If you want the endpoint earlier or later, if you just get your playhead where you want it to start, hit I for endpoint, it changes it. I'm going to undo that. Command Z or Control Z on a PC once, twice, and undo those two moves that I did, because this was the selection that I wanted right there. So now I want to drop this into my timeline. And the way you drop that into your timeline, right now it's still in the source monitor, there's nothing in my timeline. You'll use the period, or what's called the angled bracket to the right. We'll drop it into the timeline. That's going to be what's called an overwrite. If you hit comma or the angled bracket to the left, that is going to be an insert. And we'll get into that in a little bit here. But right now I'm just going to hit period. That's going to drop that clip down. It'll drop the in and out point down into my timeline. Notice it switched to the program monitor, and now it is viewing what is in my timeline. I'm going to hit Shift 3 to jump to my timeline, and hit Home to go to the beginning, and I hit the spacebar to press play. And it will play through the clip that I've edited in my timeline. And you can see this playhead progressing here as it's playing through the footage. Now, one thing that it did here is this footage here does not have audio. Sometimes you'll have audio, and right here, this was shot on the Red camera. We did not have a microphone plugged into the camera, and we did not do sound for this. And we did not do a sound cart for this, so there is no sound for this. We're going to be mixing sound later on for it. So right now, I really don't need those audio clips down in here. So what I could do, since I've already dropped them in, I'm going to show you a little trick here, though, is I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, and I'm going to select these two audio clips right there. If you don't do that, these are all conjoined here. So if you want to disconnect them, you hold down Option, and you can click down here and drag this marquee across both of those clips there, and I hit the big delete key at the top of my keyboard. And now I have that clip down in there. So let's show you another thing. Let's go to our next shot. So where I want this playhead to be is at the end of my clip. So when I drop the next clip down on, it won't overwrite over this portion of my clip here. So while I'm here on my timeline, notice I have my timeline highlighted. I'm going to hit arrow down on the arrow keys. On your arrow keys, you have up, down, left, and right. I'm going to hit arrow down, and it will jump to the end. If you hit arrow up, it jumps on edits to the left. If you hit arrow down, it jumps to edits to the right. And right there, it's jumped at the end of this clip here, and I can go to my next clip. So I'm going to hit Shift 1 to jump to my project window, move my mouse over and hit the tilde key if I want. And now I can kind of go through my footage. And the next shot that I'm looking for is this over-the-shoulder shot, and it's actually down here, and it's 1G. So they shot this later. They shot all the footage from one side of the bed and then went to the other side of the bed and shot the other footage, which is very, very efficient. So even though the shots aren't in order, the editor just has to kind of go through the footage and find out what they need. But look at this. I've got 1G. Pickup take 1, so let's go to the regular 1G that's not a pickup. Right here, 1G, I explained in the last tutorial that I did what a pickup was. 1G take 1 and 1G take 2 and 1G take 3. I'm going to take the last take and see if this is a good one. So I'm going to select that one, do Shift O to open. It opens it up in my source monitor here. I'm a little ways into this clip here. For some reason it loaded it right there. So I'm going to hit J and rewind this. Well, actually, let's just go to the beginning. I'm going to hit the home key. Home key goes to the very beginning of the clip. 1G take 3. I'm going to forward through this. I'm hitting L, 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 and K to stop. I'm getting ready to hit my stop key here. I've got my fingers on JKL, but I'm going to hit L, L, and get ready when she starts to move. And right there, she moves. So I'm going to get it where we see her face. I'm going to hit J, rewind, and stop right there. That's where I want my shot to start, is right there, right before she turns. So I'm going to hit I for endpoint, play. She looks over at the clock, give it a beat. Well, right there it actually changes to 12:07, so I want to get it before it changes 12:07 because I want to cut to a short close-up of the clock. So J to rewind, right there it's 12:06. So I'm going to hit O for out point, and I'm going to hit period to drop it into my timeline. Now, look what it did here down on my timeline. Shift 3 to go to my timeline. I'm going to zoom up to this a little bit. The way you can zoom up and zoom out of your footage here is you can go down to this little bar right here and grab this and stretch it across. And that's expanding it and looking at more of the timeline, or you can shrink it by doing this and zooming up to it. What I like to do is I like to hit the plus or minus at the very top of the keyboard. Plus and minus. Plus zooms up to a clip. Minus zooms out. If I hit minus, 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 zooms out, plus, 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 zooms up. And I'm going to get this to where you can kind of see the clip a little bit better. Another thing I like to do to kind of prep my timeline here is I like to increase the track height. So I'm going to do Shift plus will increase my track height to kind of the standard height where now you can see a thumbnail on the clip here. You can actually move your mouse over these areas if you want these to even be larger, individual tracks to be larger. You can hold down Option or Alt while your mouse is here in the gray area, in the blank area there, and you scroll up on your mouse and it makes it larger. It's just doing it just for that track. You can do it here on the audio tracks as well, individually, or you can just do Shift minus or Shift plus to make it really small or to make it at a standard track height. Now look what's happened here. It's dropped the audio down inside of my timeline along with the video. If you just, and rather than just like having to drop it in the video and then do this Option select or Alt select and delete like that, I'm going to show you something that'll make this a little bit easier. I know all my footage, I don't need to use the audio on it, pretty much all my footage. I think there's one clip where she screams and I have the audio for that. So I'm going to undo here, I'm going to undo again, and now the edit's no longer in my timeline. We can go back to my source monitor, Shift 2, we'll jump back to my source monitor. And I've got this clip, I'm going to drop down in, but I do not want to drop the audio down. Down here on the timeline, you've got, this is called the source patching right here. Source patching is reading from the source monitor, and right now it is telling you I can see a video track and 2 audio tracks here in your source monitor. So what you can do is you can go down here and just uncheck track A1, track A2. It's still reading it, saying you still have 1 video track and 2 audio tracks up here, but right now it's only going to be dropping my video into this timeline. And I'm just going to keep that on while I do most of my editing here until I'm ready to do my sound mix. Right now my playhead is in the right spot where I want to drop it. I can hit period and notice it just brings the video in and leaves the audio out. So very convenient. So let me just rewind this here. I'm going to go Shift 3 of my timeline and hit J a couple times and rewind right here and just see how that transition looks from this clip to over the shoulder here. She turns over and then she turns over again. So that is a mismatch in continuity. I'm going to leave it like that right now because I want to show you later on how you fine tune it. Right now I just need the basic clips in my timeline for a basic what they call assembly edit, which isn't even really your rough cut yet. It's like a rough cut. I like to call it the assembly edit, which basically means you're just getting all the footage in the order that you want to tell the story in, and then you start going through and fine tuning it. So let's get to the end of this. I'm going to hit end on my keyboard and go to the end of my timeline. Shift 1 to jump to my project window. And now I'm going to arrow up and find my clock shot right there. Shift O to open it up, where you can double click on it and it opens up in the source monitor. And I need to find that point where the clock changes from 12:06 to 12:07, because that's kind of a key point in the story, that something comes and visits her right when 12:07 hits after midnight. All right, so I'm going to hit J to rewind, because this is at the end of the shot. I mean, right there, it just changed. So I'm going to hit I for endpoint, and let's see how long this takes till it changes. See, that might be a little too quick, so let's go J, rewind just about another half second, put I for endpoint, press play, clock changes, stop right there. And I can make it a little longer if I want to, but later on I can trim this if the pacing seems off on the timeline. So period to drop that into my timeline. Shift 3 to jump down my timeline. Let's look at let's see how that looks here. So plays through. I hit J a couple times to rewind. She looks over at the clock, cut to the clock, clock changes, we're good. We're golden. So hit end, go to the end here. Now I'm going to go back to my script and let's read the next portion of the script here. So she sighs, closes her eyes, rolls onto her back. That changed a little bit too. The director changed some things while we were shooting. Then creak, a footstep noise heard not too far away. Belle's eyes shoots open. Belle looks up towards the closed bedroom door. Another footstep creak. Belle reaches up and turns on her lamp. Belle's eyes open wide with panic as the door slowly creeps open. So let's go to that point right there, to where the door slowly creeps open. So she turns on the light, and I can't remember if they shot it in that exact sequence. So let's go back and we're going to find that next portion. So I'm going to go back to the master shot here. So Shift 1 to go back to my project window. Let's arrow up, go back to Scene 1, Take 6. Shift O to open it up. And right now my playhead has gone back to the beginning. So what you can do, a shortcut here that you can know about, is this is the first clip I edited down into the timeline here, that in and out point. What you can do is I want to go to my out point and play from there. Shift-O will jump to your out point. Shift-I jumps to your in point. Shift-O jumps to your out point. Now I can press play, and right there she lifts up her head because she hears the creak. But as I play through the rest of this clip here, it looks like nothing else happens. So I got to get a different shot. So that continues. So that was not a complete master shot. But let's look. I think the part where she hears the door creak is on 1 alpha here. So 1 alpha take 2. So I'm going to select that. Shift-O to open it up. Let's take a look at this clip here. Home to go to the beginning. LLL to fast forward through it. K to stop. Right where she looks at the clock. Let's get where she looks at the clock. Right there, she's looking at the clock. So I for endpoint, she just saw it change to 12:07. Press play. She lays back down. And then creak. She hears the noise and looks over at the door. She reaches over and turns off the light. Okay, and that take's not a good take right there because she reaches over and somebody turned on the light for her and the light turned on before she even reached her hand over. So I'm going to choose a different shot. Shift-1. Go to 1A, take 1. Shift-O to open it up. Home to go to the beginning. Let's play through this. LLLL. K to stop. LL. She looks at the clock. And right there, she's looking at the clock. I want to hit I for endpoint, and then she closes her eyes right after she looks at it, lays back down, start the dolly push in, and she hears a creak. She reaches over and turns on the light. O for out point, period to drop that. It's where it needs to be in the timeline, at the end of my timeline, period to drop it in. Now we have that shot down in there. So, and I, as an editor, I pretty much always like to look at all my new shots that I put down on the timeline. So I'm going to arrow up, arrow up, arrow up, and kind of get over a few shots. See, normally if I was editing fast, I'd just go boom, 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 play, and play through my shots here. Looks at the clock, change it to 12:07. She lays back down, moves in, and she hears the creak. Footstep walking in the hallway, so she turns on the light. And now we're going to cut to the door opening. Okay, one more time here. Okay, so one more time on the process here. One final time here. All right, so Shift-1, I'm going to jump to my footage here, and arrow down and find, and the next shot that I actually want is 1G pickup. Take 4 is where she, right after she turns on the light, it pans over and shows the door opening up. So Shift-O to open that up, and I can forward through this. Hit LLL a couple times. Get ready to hit K. Right here's where she turns on the light. Turns on the light. So right where she turns on the light, I'm going to put an in point because now it cuts over the shoulder and pans over and shows the door open here. So now I'm going to hit L to go forward. Pans over. And cue the door. Door opens up. Right there. Let's stop. O for out point. Period to drop it into the timeline. And let's get that reaction shot as she reacts to the door opening up. That is 1. When I take 1. And I'm going to go back to 1A, take 1. Actually, let's see if take 2 has a good dolly, because then after the door opens up, the dolly pushes in closer to her. So let's double click on that. So there's where she hears the creak. She turns on the light, but that was a bad light switch, so I just want this part after the door opens. It moves into her kind of panicking. So all right, let's do this. Let's move back a little bit. Right there, she kind of blinks. I'm going to get it right after, right there, right where the dolly's moving. I for endpoint. Press play, and the dolly moves into her face there to get a reaction. And O for out point, period to drop it in. Okay, that's enough. Let's take a look at what we got here. Shift-3 to go to my timeline. Arrow up a few times. Let's start right here. Okay, the clock turns to 12:07. She lays down, rolls over a little bit, and then she hears the creak, and then she's looking over at the door, turns on the light, and then... See, in some of these I'm thinking I'm going to shorten up a little bit, but I'm going to do that later. I'm going to do that in the next episode. And then it pans up towards the door there, kind of pans and tilts up toward the door opens up, and then it cuts to her freaking out a little bit as the dolly gets closer to her. So there we go. Okay, so that's it on basic assembly. I want to do this from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, get all the shots I want in there. But like I said, the pacing on this feels a little slow in parts, feels a little choppy in parts, and there's actually a mismatch in continuity right here, and that's okay. What you want to do is you want to get the basic shots in your timeline to tell the general story in order that you need to get the story to be effective. Then when you're done, you're going to come back and you're going to watch through it. And like I said, as I watch through this, I see some parts that seem slow and mismatched. So we're going to continue doing this. We're going to continue fine-tuning this in the timeline, and that's what our next episode will be. And after all that's done, that would be considered a rough cut. Then the director would sit down, look at it, make some suggestions, and then they'd keep working on it until they create what's called a working cut. And then once the working cut's done, it can be sent off to audio, it can be sent off to the colorist, it can be sent off to have the effects done. And then once everything's all done, the titles and everything is all put together, the editor sits down with the director and does what's called a final cut or a fine cut. So anyway, but yeah, that's it for the assembly edit. I've got the footage down in the link, so if you want to download it, it's a zip file. You can download it, extract it, import your footage, organize it, and start editing for practice on this. Because we will be going through sound mixing on this, and we'll be going through color grading, we're going to be going through titles, we're going to be going through a whole bunch of things over the course of several upcoming episodes. So if you have any questions, please let me know, and thanks for watching, and I will see you in future episodes.